Greetings. I just thought I'd make a quick video about why a person might be persuaded to study mathematics. First of all, maths gives a person the opportunity to be right, 100% and verifiably so. Not in all cases, but in most mainstream strands of maths that are used for engineering and financial maths, there's one, maybe two answers, correct answers to a problem, which when you compare that to other disciplines and faculties, doesn't immediately seem that attractive a characteristic. However, in a world where certainty is becoming increasingly scarce, it's good to know that there are places where you can go where you know that you are right, and you can verify through representation of your logic and reasoning how you are right, why you are right. Maybe the realm of a higher order mathematician, but in order to be functional in a world of uncertainty, maths does have that attribute, and that attribute might be something that a person values during times of uncertainty, to know that not only are they right, that they can verify it. So that attribute of mathematics is well and good for those megalomaniacs and narcissists amongst us who must insist on always being right and being verifiably right. So this is why people in the legal profession tend to go well at mathematics as well, due to the employment of logic inherent in the discipline. In both disciplines, largely rely upon logic and reasoning, and that's a nice overlap. So if you're able to articulate yourself in linguistic form, in written English or written language of some description, and you're equally able to reason through linguistically, albeit in the maths or algebraic language, for example, and familiarise yourself with the tools and techniques for expressing yourself mathematically, then I think linguistically that's half the battle. Particularly where in linguistic disciplines, humanitarian disciplines, it's about verifying, or as far as you can, showing the reason by which you arrived at the answer. And that will directly be informed by one's capacity to reason algebraically. That directly translates, in my experience at least, into being able to articulate oneself, present evidence of the contrary. You're able to articulate yourself reasonably well in both disciplines. Now, purist maths and maths for maths' sake, well and good, can be an obsession, like a Beethoven trying to finish a symphony. It can get a little out of control, given at the peripherals of the universe we don't quite know how physics behaves, but we know it's radically different from our understanding so far. So there are unknowns in mathematics as there are in physics, is the point, and that can drive people toward obsession. It can be a dangerous place to dwell. Mathematics, wow, as can classical music, so be warned. So the point really was that well in from that end of the spectrum, you've got opportunities in engineering to convert the knowledge onto paper and that paper into a signed timesheet invoice, and you get paid each month, which is a nice attribute as well. To know that you're right, to know that your money is secure, you're in a secure place because you can verify that you're right, you get paid to be right. So your job security for your competency on the job, that aspect can be verified. That's a nice attribute. Financial maths is another area where you get paid to be right. Lives aren't at risk. Well, they probably are. People tend to care more about money than life. If you ever watch them behave. In a bear market, you understand what I'm talking about. But again, if you're paid to be correct, if that's part of your remuneration contract, then you will find yourself in a good place, knowing that I wouldn't necessarily say financial markets are secure by any stretch, but maths in financial markets are never too far apart, never too far away from one another. There's a role in the financial markets called quantitative analysis, an analyst. This is a PhD or a maths boffin from Oxford with a fucking first class honours degree, PhD, the whole 9 yards, as the case might be. Yeah, it's a good role to be in. I don't know how lucrative it is. I tend to go with computer programming, that particular position. But you can make money by reducing. You can control your risk. You can measure your risk. You can measure things. It's probably the most safest way to put it, because financial markets themselves volatile. So just because you're a gun at maths doesn't mean that you're going to get the markets right. Two different animals, but within financial markets, there's a heavy reliance upon discipline of mathematics, and getting it right in financial markets is very lucrative. If you're on your own bat, if you're a quant for a bank, then probably not that sexy, but in terms of remuneration package. But when you start to really hit your straps as a market risk manager or financial risk manager, then, well, if it's your own portfolio, you're master of your own destiny, because you've measured your risk, you've quantified it, you've accepted to take on that risk. May not go that way, but you'll know that the most you'll lose is X in the next 5 days if markets remain within parameters. So making those types of statements on your own portfolio, it's not really practical given all the computer simulation that's required and the intensive processing power required for that. Typically a data center worth of computers crunching numbers all day long to give you your value at risk is a handy number. You're probably not going to go to that extent unless it's your profession and your passion. A lot of people are into this shit. I mean, well, what can I say? It's rewarding. They're chasing, they're prospectors. They're like panning for gold, if you will. There's a number of disciplines within it where it's a hybrid of mathematics and computing, so artificial intelligence, machine learning, algorithm trading. All of those areas can be implemented now from home with the basic laptop. Don't recommend you do it, but there are programs of master's programs out there that will enable you to quantify the risk that you're taking, and develop rules, back-test your rules against historic data for volatility and price volatility, same I suppose. But at discrete moments in time, 9/11, you might be doing some research or you might be programming a machine to find market opportunity, what to do when wave 2 of the coronavirus hits, for example. And you're telling this machine to go and find every disaster in history that's equivalent, and massage pick out the bits of relevant data, and then back test it. So come up with the optimized portfolio to have, or whatever, when to buy the portfolio. So how long before the peak of the disaster do you buy the portfolio? How long do you hold it? When do you get out? Blah 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 blah. All of that stuff can be either factored in an input to design, or they could be the output. And what you want, well, they're both. And basically, what you want to do with algo trading is, all right. Well, maybe the second wave. Let's use that as a rough example. Let's just say that, well, when it kicks off, it starts at, I don't know, 300 deaths per day. When that rate is reached, that's the start of the thing, and that's when you invoke the trade. You get that parameter in, and you feed that into the computer. Once you've done the research, back tested it. So you do the research, you can program a thing to find me the opportunities, right? Find me, let's look at radical opportunities where volatility has gone off the charts. What provoked it? Were there leading indicators that this was going to happen? What duration do we stay in the trade? What do we get out 20% before the, and when I say how long we stay there, what does that mean? It means volatility, or fucking a moving average, exponential fucking weighted moving average, for example, of volatility starts to, the slope of that line starts to reach a certain point, and the slope of the line starts to reach a certain point. And at that point, that's a trigger, that's to get in or get out of the trade, right? When those numbers are reached, and you've got to know what those numbers are. You don't, do you? Well, it's not, you have a lot better time the deeper you understand things, the detail. With that said, though, you don't need to be a quant. I mean, you don't need to be any of this. These are all, you can be the complete team, right? You can be the A team in a one-man band A team, no question about it. But you benefit from leveraging other people's fucking investment in time, because let's face it, let's say maths and physics are two radically different disciplines with no overlap in between. Maths and history, fucking maths and law, maths and physics are two radically different fucking animals. They're not, but let's just pretend. So some of the PhD in physics and some of the PhD in maths, right? And there's you, and they've taken 10 years each to get to that point. There's 20 years worth of fucking book time. You can't sit there 20 years and cram in all of that shit. And you don't need 20 years either of that same collective knowledge, but the real art is you need to know how to apply that knowledge to a situation that's going to give rise to a reward or an outcome that you're seeking. It might not be a reward, it might just be you want to be right and prove that you're verifiably a genius, I don't know. But if you want money out of maths and financial markets, then I guess the thing is, you don't necessarily need to be a PhD in maths or physics. Merely just trust that they put faith in their knowledge that they're, on about, that they know what they're on about, rather. Sorry, I'm distracted. And once you do that, you can apply the maths or physics to achieve an outcome, and to leverage the skill sets of others requires a degree of discipline as well, everyone wants to be a profession. The project management profession deals with how to coordinate and create teams of highly skilled cross-functional from cross-functional areas and put them all together in order to achieve benefit. So that's the role description, and there's a process for that, a project management process. So it's a method for how to bake a cake whereas the cake's the project, how to run a project. Here's the structure, here is how to report. Now, what does this have to do with maths and physics and financial markets? Bugger all. All it means is that you don't need to be nil desperandum if you're not able to get a PhD in physics or maths. Then, but you want to be associated, or you like that environment where the work of others is verifiable, is it not? So it doesn't mean that you don't have to be the one-man band. You can be, but you might benefit from 20 years worth of collective knowledge from someone else. You might not like the books. Nil desperandum. You don't have to worry about it if you do project management, because you just pick a person to fill in the gaps, plug the holes in your own competence or your own knowledge. Plug the hole, you do that, I'll do the rest of it. Yeah, good. And you're learning, which is a great environment with which to learn, but without the absolute requirement to be all singing and all dancing, fucking everything. When they want that, that's what the employers want. They want it all in one unit, because there's a cost advantage. Reality is quite different though, because as I've pointed out, you benefit, you greater synergies from benefiting from the project if there are people from more than one discipline, and they're able to apply those multi-discipline skills that are pulled together as a unit and deliver a common deliverable on the project, So that would be a good way, and has for me been a good way of riding on the shoulders of giants, so to speak, people that were well read on maths and physics, and computer science as well, risk management disciplines, business analysts across a range of product areas for a bank, for investment banks, and I really enjoyed that environment. I love the cut and thrust of it. I love the idea that you're accountable, that you can verify that you're right, you can reason why you've taken a particular course of action, and you can outsource and have faith that other people in the team are going to be able to do their job. They're going to do their job, and you'll benefit as an organisation, and you'll be able to deliver something significant to a significant organisation. And doing that's quite gratifying. If you're doing some work that, and I mean, not just rewarding financially, but I mean, which it is, but it's really quite gratifying to work on the new innovative stuff, like ICE natural gas futures, like gas storage and gas transport, risk management, being the first to offer gas storage as a traded contract. Storage capacity and transport capacity is tradable contracts. So being around all of that, pretty exciting, and it doesn't, and in my case didn't mean that I had to have a PhD in maths or physics. So there are a number of different layers or levels of maths that one can get involved in. I guess the get out of jail card would be project management if it gets too deep, and then you just have as little or as much to do directly with the maths as you need to, and plug the gap with a subcontractor or another team member, so and then you can have a more interesting perhaps look at the more of the application of the maths. How do you make money with it? How do we make money with this application or applied mathematics? So that sums it up. I think it's a good discipline to be involved with. I'd encourage anyone really to overcome the fear of the squigglies and the dots and the other bits and pieces that linguify the maths. They actually summarise in one succinct statement what would otherwise take a paragraph to convey in narrative. So I can only encourage people to get into maths. Cheers. Thanks for listening.